Hello and welcome back to the channel We Don't Know Why. I'm Trey and I'm here with a quick video for you guys. Just something I wanted to talk about. It has to do with diesel and some developing weather in the Atlantic, as well as some stuff coming from the Northwest. So I just wanted to do a quick, hope to keep this around maybe 10 minutes or so. So we're going to start with the diesel aspect of this first. So maybe a lot of you don't know, maybe some of you do know, we're approaching a point of a pretty severe diesel shortage due to a couple of different factors, from a lack of fracking domestically in America, a lack of imports, and excessive exports from our strategic petroleum reserve, as well as a lack of refining capabilities, being as many refineries have closed in the last handful of years due to extreme government regulations and cost of doing business, and trying to keep those things running. So a diesel shortage is definitely looming. I've seen a couple of different videos and articles saying it's a roughly 25-day supply left. And now that doesn't mean that we have 25 days until there's no diesel in America. That's not what that means. What that means is there's 25 days of supply in our reserves left as a whole, right? So say if something major were to happen, right, like a hurricane like the one that just went through Florida not too long ago, and there was diesel needed for that from our kind of strategic reserves, we got 25 days left of that. So that's, that goes quick. The rate of consumption in America is pretty high, and our manufacturing is not, our refining capabilities are not there to match that. And we're also, like I've mentioned, we're not fracking enough internally and domestically, and we're not importing enough either to keep us sustained. So that strategic reserve is dropping consistently. It's like the lowest it's been since like the 50s or something like that. I don't know the exact date. So I was thinking about that the other day, right? I'm like, well, that's not ideal, right? That's not great. But I was thinking at the same time, this was a couple weeks ago, I'm like, oh, there's nothing really major happening weather-wise right now, right? So maybe we'll be okay. Maybe there's a way for us to get that refinery capability back up, and we can, maybe import a little more. Of course, I'm much more in favor of domestic production than I am of importing oil. But neither of those things are happening right now anyways, so it's kind of abysmal. And then we've got this developing subtropical storm off Florida's coast, toward the east, and subtropical storm Nicole, I believe they're calling it. And I was like, it's a subtropical storm. I'm like, maybe it's not too bad. Well, I did just watch a video that kind of put some of that in more of a perspective for me, and that has some potential to do some pretty major damage. If it stays subtropical, I guess its footprint is going to be pretty big. And although it may not be as damaging as the hurricane that went through Florida earlier, just a little bit ago, it still has some potential to do a lot of damage, and could possibly need a dip into some of those reserves for rebuilding and rescue efforts and whatever else might come of that, especially since it has the capability of growing to something bigger than it is right now. I guess according to the video I watched, there's no major worries about it developing into anything super serious as of now. But you know how weather is, in that it really is just a lot of predictions on our parts. We never know exactly what's going to happen. With the last hurricane in point, right? Just to prove the point, that it was supposed to hit Tampa, and it hit quite a bit south of Tampa and hit the Fort Myers area, right, instead of Tampa. So that's just shows weather is predictions. We don't know 100% when it comes to weather. Meteorology is kind of a little hobby of mine. It's something I enjoy talking about and learning about. And being a part of that, you just have to understand that weather is prediction. So it could be far less worse than it is currently, or it could be far worse than it is currently. So there's some potential there. And that's kind of what was drawing my attention, right, is that we are on this peak of this extreme diesel shortage, in which we only have roughly 25 days left in our reserves at our current consumption rate of oil in the US, and that any major weather events that could cause some serious damage could really take a toll. And that's just what I wanted to talk about. I mean, I thought it was just curious that, it really could tip a lot of things over the edge, something like this subtropical storm. And then you got to pile on top of that there is some major systems developing towards the northwest side of the United States as well, that is supposed to bring in some pretty cold weather, and as well coming from the west. So there's a lot of stuff in the west. I know I'm showing like I have a map or something, but from the west there's several systems developing that could be pretty intense as well, that could bring some snow and could bring extremely cold weather. So there's a lot of potential for some pretty major storm systems to come through, not to mention some of the major tornado outbreaks in Texas and Oklahoma that happened over the last week here that have caused some damage. I mean, stuff like this, and there's just a lot of potential for some cold and warm weather mixing and not great things happening across the U.S. that I just fear could really add to the stress of this already very strenuous situation with the diesel and oil capacities that we have and everything that we have on that spectrum. Of course, if anything major were to happen, you could imagine you'd see some skyrocketing diesel cost, as well as a lot of other costs in food and everything else, because the shipping industry is largely dependent on diesel, right? I mean, everything in your grocery store is brought there by a semi-truck that's going to run on diesel fuel. And since we've already seen such an increase in food and other commodities and other things that we need in stores and all this other stuff, right? We've already seen such an increase in prices and all those things. Well, you can only guarantee to see more increases in prices, and possibly extremely radical increases in prices, if something like diesel were to go through the roof due to a nationwide shortage, which is looking more and more possible, as there won't be diesel at a pump, right? And that's what happens when you start to get some of these major events that could that could really require dipping into the reserves for what the reserves were meant for, and using that little bit of oil that we have left. So I just thought I'd make a quick video about it, talking about it, getting that out there, getting people thinking about that, because it's something I've been looking at. And then with this development of weather, I just wanted to, really, because it's getting more realistic, right? The prospects of really being out of diesel or extremely increased prices of diesel is definitely more of a possibility now than it even was a week ago, with these major storms developing. I will link the video that I just watched on these weather systems in the description of this video if you want to go give that a look, kind of form your own opinion on it. I'll also try to find the video that I watched the other day on the diesel shortage and the oil issue, and I will link that one in the description as well if you want to go watch that and form your own opinions on that. If you like this, feel free to subscribe. We got lots of content on here. We've got lots of content coming. I've got several uploads planned for the next couple weeks here. And this is Trey. There we go. This is Trey with We Don't Know Why, signing off. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.